Welcome back to this episode of Defence Talks, Securing UK Advantage, a podcast brought to you by the Council on Geostrategy in partnership with trade association ADS Group and sponsored by industry powerhouse BAE Systems. Our podcast discusses key questions that shape defence, technological and national security agendas in the UK and explores the main themes in British defence in the context of intensifying geopolitical competition. Every 2 years, advanced manufacturing industries are invited to Farnborough International Exhibition and Conference Centre for the Airshow. On Monday, 22nd July 2024, the Farnborough International Airshow will begin in Hampshire, England. Across 5 days, this airshow will welcome thousands of people to focus on 6 key themes: space, defence, sustainability, innovation, future flight, and the workforce. In this episode, we will explore how Farnborough International Airshow brings together key stakeholders, convening the conversations that matter. We will also investigate how far the airshow, now on its 75th edition, has come, and what it means for the future of advanced manufacturing industries. I'm Victoria Starrick-Summerlin, co-founder and director of strategy at the Council on Geostrategy, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Kevin Craven, CEO of ADS Group, and Gareth Rogers, CEO of Farnborough International. Kevin Craven became CEO of ADS in April 2021, having served as a member of the ADS board for 3 years, including as ADS Vice President Defence. After a career at Aramark and Balfour Beatty, Kevin was made Chief Executive of Serco UK and Europe in 2014, comprising 6 business units including defence, transport and healthcare. Kevin has also served as a non-executive on several engineering joint ventures. We are also absolutely delighted to be joined by Gareth Rogers, who joined Farnborough International at the start of 2018. Prior to joining Farnborough International, Gareth spent more than 6 years with Southampton Football Club, first as Chief Financial Officer before being promoted to Chief Executive in 2014. In 2015, Gareth was named Director of the Year for Large Companies, London and South East, by the Institute of Directors. So Kevin and Gareth, welcome. So it's an exciting week ahead of you, and perhaps we can begin our conversation by focusing a bit more on the history of the Farnborough Airshow. Gareth, could you please tell us more? What is the story behind this airshow?
So as a town, the aviation industry goes all the way back to 1905. So we used to have a huge balloon manufacturing plant, but actually the very first UK powered flight took place on the airfield here at Farnborough in 1907 by Samuel Cody, and aerospace grew up around it. To be honest, people have been coming here for 120 years. And Farnborough International Airshow keeps that tradition going. It was started 1948, and it was 75 years last September. So it really is, it's continued to bring industry together, and it's almost grown every year, to be honest.
So Kevin, for those who might not know, what is Farnborough International Airshow and what happens there?
It's the point at the calendar where the aerospace and defence industries get together to showcase their capability to the world. We have around about 70 to 80% of the global CEOs in our sectors coming together with the UK government and nearly 400 international delegations to talk about the exciting opportunities, the challenges that the industry face and how we're dealing with them, and of course to talk about the latest products. So it is a huge example of the convening power that we bring to the table in terms of bringing these people together, and we're really excited that this year's show is the biggest and best ever.
So what happens before the show and after the show that is different? What value does the show bring?
Interestingly, one thing that's unusual this year is we have a new government that came on board 10 days before the show. So normally we have 3 months of diary planning to make it happen and get, as many as 6 secretaries of state, 20 odd ministers and the Prime Minister together with this industry to talk about those issues that matter. This time we've had 10 days. So remarkable demonstration of support from the new government that they are turning out with record numbers of ministers and senior members of the cabinet. The other thing is the sheer amount of planning that goes ahead. So each of those CEOs that I spoke about will have probably 20 meetings per day whilst they're here, and they will probably meet with somewhere in the region of 300 or 400 people. So it is a huge concentration and business focus that allows the industry to work really efficiently at the same time as enjoying and understanding the latest trends in the industry.
A lot of thought leadership goes into the show as well. So we have people coming together throughout the week, CEOs, technology officers, finance officers, really just to talk about what's happening within industry on a global level, those externalities that are affecting all industries, and how is the sector going to deal with them.
So if we were to summarize the key benefits of this cross-industry activity that we usually see at this air show, what would these be?
The first and obvious one is the orders. This is the point in the calendar where many manufacturers and airlines, for that matter, will store up their orders for the year and announce them at Farnborough. It's a great platform for new technologies. The government use it for new policy announcements, and we're expecting a number of those exciting developments this week, I have to say. And so generally it's a call to action for the industry. Those CEOs, of course, are action-oriented and will be sending orders down the chain as soon as they get back to the office.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point in terms of the orders down the chain, because then what sits behind that is the whole aerospace supply chain. So we have just under 1,500 exhibitors here, right from the primes down to those that are supplying all the way up the chain. And it's an opportunity for everybody to be in one place at the same time, as Kevin described a moment ago. You just don't get that opportunity that often to have everybody being there, so you can have hundreds of meetings throughout the week, and that makes a difference to businesses.
So let's perhaps move away from the airshow for a moment and let's talk a bit more broadly about this trend for the sector as a whole. Kevin, in your view, how has the defence and perhaps more specifically the aerospace sector performed in the last decade?
So we have seen, tremendous growth in both sectors, and our sectors are a huge contributor to the UK economy, but aerospace specifically contributes £10.9 billion to the UK economy in 2023, which has grown by around about 16% over the last 10 years. First time we've announced those decade-long figures, and both productivity, revenue, jobs, all are up by significant numbers. And I'm particularly pleased to say that our apprentice numbers continue to grow. And in the aerospace sector alone, we have over 6,000 apprentices. The good news, and particularly given the focus on the workforce from the new Labour government, is that our sectors are the home for very skilled workers with higher than average productivity figures, but also pay. Our workers are very well paid and significantly higher than the UK economy average.
You've mentioned apprenticeships and also, the jobs that the sector creates. What are other impacts or other benefits that this industry brings to the UK? Could you please perhaps mention a few more?
I think probably the most important one is our part in the global competitive aerospace marketplace. So UK aerospace produces depending on the particular aircraft, between 25 and 50% of the components of those aircraft for particularly Airbus, but also Boeing as well. And so, we are one of the world leading companies in this space. And I think that is something that we should be very proud of, and should also continually remind government that this is a global marketplace.
I think that's a reflection of why the show's here as well, isn't it? It's about the UK leading that global market. It's why the world comes to the UK, because it is it is a leader and they're happy to come here.
I think the other part would be simply the skills that we bring and the knowledge and capability that we bring to the UK. So interesting, this year we are seeing the AI industry here in force, and you will see that continue to develop both from an aerospace and defence point of view, but we're also seeing the airlines coming, which is a new trend that we're really excited about as well. So all in all, the sector is a real beacon for the UK economy, and we're very proud of it.
So ADS has been involved for a number of years when it comes to Farnborough Airshow, and perhaps you could explain a bit more about the relationship between ADS Group and Farnborough International. What is the link?
So, I see ADS Group as having two critical halves. One is the trade association, and the other is Farnborough International, and it's almost a yin and yang type relationship where the skills that we bring to the exhibition world are an absolutely natural home for the talents and capabilities that our members want to showcase and why they've joined ADS in the first place. And of course, government is really pleased to be able to see UK's capability demonstrated in such a public way without the use of any public money at all. So there's a very strong relationship that has grown much stronger over recent years. Pleased to say that this year we have the Government Hub with 10 government departments on display and available to both those 400 or so international delegations, but also the 1,500 exhibitors. So we continue to innovate, and that innovation comes out of the synergy between the two halves of the group.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect description of it, because it actually allows us to focus on our strengths between the two sort of major halves of the group. Is that we at Farnborough International are, we're event people mainly, but one of the things that we do really, really well, and Kevin and I speak regularly, throughout the period, is going, well, actually, what are the aerospace industry looking for, and how can we turn that into a physical manifestation? So the government hub that Kevin spoke about, that's a prime example, seeing aeroplanes in the sky and actually just having, like we spoke about before, just having everybody in one place. But in order to do that, you've got to create an event. You've got to create something that has to be built. It has to be staffed. It has to be manned. It has to have all the right project management, and that allows the ADS trades half that Kevin spoke about to focus on the things that really matter from the trade association perspective.
So international, Gareth, is in the title of this air show. Where do usually these international delegations or participants come from?
Globally, to be honest. There's no one place that you would look at and say they come from X or they come from Y. They genuinely come from across the globe, from as far away as Australia, Japan, South Korea. We have significant presence from the US. I think we've got, it might be 5 or 6 US state governors here. So that gives you the sense of how important it is to the states, Canada, but also South America. We've got a delegation from Chile as well. So, and then, many from throughout Africa. And like I said, it really is an event that convenes the world. It talks about Farnborough International. It's because it is. It genuinely is. 70% of our exhibitor base is from overseas. So only 30% is based here in the UK.
I think you missed the 93 countries that they're coming from, Gareth.
Yes,
so
you're right. Apologies.
That
yes.
is an important stat. And look, I should also probably mention Ukraine. We have one exhibitor from Ukraine. Normally we would have more, but they are obviously fighting an existential war, which is challenging. And ADS is supporting Ukraine very strongly and have recently returned from our first private sector trade mission in country. And I am pretty sure we're going to have significantly more Ukrainian exhibitors next show.
So across 5 days, this airshow will welcome thousands of people to focus on 6 key themes. and they are the following: space, defense, sustainability, innovation, future flight, and the workforce. Could you please explain a bit more why these particular themes have been selected for this year?
One of the things that we've really tried to do at Farnborough International, in particular the Farnborough Airshow, was rather than just sell space and let people come and exhibit what they feel they need to exhibit, is actually to try and curate the show a little bit more. And that's why we have these themes. So we have spent a long period of time discussing with our colleagues at ADS, industry representatives, governments, what do they see as the key challenges? What are the externalities that exist in the world? And they're the 6 themes that we came up with. And we represent them in many different ways throughout the show. So it will be the exhibitor base, but it will also be what's flying in the sky. It will be what's happening in the thought leadership and the conference program. But it will also be what meetings are being curated. But then it will also be who have we invited from a guest, and those people who want to come and specifically talk about that topic. It isn't just one area, because the final bit is then the features and the way the show looks as well. So it's really important that a trade show, which what this event ultimately is representative of the industry that it's focusing on, and that's not always the case for trade shows that you will see across the world.
No, we try and convene the conversations that matter.
Yeah.
And so those themes represent the things that are important to our industries and are driving the technology roadmaps, that are driving the commercial conversations. And really, as we all globally go through the energy transition, the aerospace and defense industries are playing a very big part in that and have to, So the themes are important. The way our exhibitors reflect those themes is important. The great news for us is that those conversations are happening right here at Farnborough.
Yeah, and sustainability, for example, we have, you'll see that across the show. But the commercial, or sort of say the civil air display will be performed on SAF for the first time, which is great to see. We have a dedicated conference on the Tuesday that's focusing on sustainability within the industry, but also on the Wednesday when our defence focus is taking place, there's even a session in there that's about sustainability in the defence industry. So that almost pervades the whole show. And Friday we dedicate to workforce, so there's that skills piece that is one of the themes. So we invite the public in, so create some public engagement. But also we really focus on trying to solve the issues of the industry in the next 5 years. So it's free to under 21s, but we have a real focus on apprentices, school leavers, those at STEM, universities, postgraduates, doctorate, all of those kind of things, because it's important. And then on Thursday, when we look at future flight, we have our Global Urban Aviation and Advance Symposium, and it's about bringing those companies together like Joby and Vertical and Supernal, those real technology leading companies that are trying to do something different, that are looking to create the resolution that Kevin spoke about in terms of that energy crisis.
The show is, of course, undoubtedly highlight in the calendar for advanced manufacturing industries in the UK and also globally. But are there any similar shows that take place around the world, and how does this show compare with them? Are we leading when it comes to this area?
So there are effectively what you would class as 2 major global shows that are both hosted in Europe. So we are held biennially every 2 years, and then on the intervening year, Paris Airshow takes over, and they will be classed as what the prime contractors was classed HQ shows. So all of the industry, the CEOs, all of the businesses, should I say, would come to that. And then there are more regional shows like Dubai, Singapore, Bahrain that we as Farnborough International also host, as well as FIDE in Chile. So they tend to move around the world on a 2-year cycle. But in terms of the global leading shows where the entire world is convened in one place, it is ourselves and Paris that take place on intervening years in the summer of each year.
Kevin, last September marked the 75th anniversary of Farnborough Airshow, making the show actually older than the NATO alliance. We just recorded a podcast to mark the 75th anniversary of NATO as well, as part of Defence Talks, so it is a really impressive number. I wonder if you could walk us through the history a bit again and try to make some comparisons. How does the show differ from what we used to see before, and how has it progressed?
I think the show obviously tracks the aerospace and aviation industry as a whole. So, starting with Frank Whittle's jet engine, which was showcased in that very first show, to now when we're beginning to see the eVTOL next generation electric aircraft, we are showcasing the evolution of the industry as well. The planes that fly here, the static displays, the conversations as we've talked about that happen, really this is a crystallization, the very essence of all that is good in the industry. I think the defense component of the show has grown over time, and some of that reflects the increasingly dangerous world that we live in. I think this year we have some 40% of the aircraft on display are military, which is an increase. And so we are, in that sense, a village that reflects the global trends. But more importantly than reflecting those trends, we're responding to those trends, and actually we're leading the conversations that resolve and develop solutions, where those trends are adverse. So it has grown. I was in Washington for the summit. It was extremely hot in Washington. I'm hoping it's slightly cooler here for the air show. But that too is an impressive feat given the number of allies. So the themes of collaboration, cross-border partnership, and international evolution and growing maturity, I think, are similar themes between the two exhibitions. And without, stretching the metaphor too far, I think it's a great comparison. The increasing complexity of our industries means that no single organization can dominate things any longer. You need coherent supply chains, you need collaboration between competitors, and in terms of R&D, you need governments involved to bring this to life. So fantastic to see it here in Farnborough, and fantastic to see the strength of NATO against, the actions of the Russian aggressors.
Gareth, would you agree?
Very much so. Very much so. It is, we deal with the very pointed end of the businesses that come here in terms of their presence, the size of their presence, where they want to be in the show, who they want to be near, who they want to speak to, and that very much matches what Kevin's just spoken about in terms of looking at the global trends, the geopolitical tensions that exist in the world, and we've seen that play out in the presence at the show and the flying display and those other things. But the couple of things I would just add in terms of when you spoke about the importance of the Farnborough Airshow, just to put it into context, the civil, and there's actually, take a step back, those orders that Kevin spoke about earlier. In the last 10 years, those orders, purely for the civil side, are £508 billion that have been announced here at Farnborough. Now, we say 10 years, actually that's only 4 shows, because COVID robbed us of one of those shows. So 508 billion over 4 shows really does show how important this show is to the aerospace world. And that doesn't even include military orders. That is purely civil, just to emphasise.
So 75 is an impressive number, of course, but in order to stay relevant, you also must innovate. So what are the future plans for the show in the upcoming years and in the upcoming decades? Kevin?
Well, we are trying really hard to encourage those at the cutting edge of aerospace to use Farnborough as their launch pad and showcase to the world. And I mentioned earlier the electric air taxis and the regional electric aircraft that are coming down the pipeline. The SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, being supplied for the air displays is in of itself a innovation and heralding the growth over the next 10 to 15 years where sustainable aviation fuels will be the way in the interim before the next generation of aircraft arrive that the industry becomes more sustainable. And that innovation will continue with hydrogen. We're really excited, and we have a number of SMEs who are displaying and exhibiting who will be showcasing their propulsion, the hydrogen fuel cell technologies, and so on and so forth. Interestingly, one of the things that I find amazing and enjoy as an engineer is the continuous improvement aspect of the industry, whereby small innovations in terms of design, the way the engines are developed, the way the aerostructures are developed are improving the sustainability of our aircraft every single year. So we see it writ large and we see it writ small. Sometimes I have to say I'm really surprised by the sheer amount of innovation that I am not aware of, and it's kind of my job to be aware of it. So I too come to Farnborough to see the innovation.
Gareth?
Fundamentally, it's about staying relevant to the industry. That's the case for every exhibition and trade show, whatever industry you're in, and having the right people there. But the way we do it internally is we have an internal framework that's there to, I'd say, maximise the effectiveness of the show and ensure we stay relevant. So we theme it around what we class the world's best air show. So how do we create the world's best air show? It's not about being the biggest. It's not about being the greatest. It's about how do we become the best? How does it become most effective? And we kind of put that along 5 areas that are sort of common amongst a lot of international trade shows. So one would be, how do we interact with the government, both our own government, but also international governments? The second would be, how do we convene business? The third would be, how do we generate thought leadership, and how do we come at the pinnacle of that and be the ones that show it? How do we amplify people's messages, so different businesses' messages? How do we make their share of voice louder? And then finally, how do we create the right experience? Because whilst it is a trade show, it's important that people have a good experience when they come here. So we've worked really hard this year to try and generate a better feel, a better look and feel. Create exhibitions, create features of the show. And when you walk into the show, I think those people are going to be surprised when they see what we've done there. And we do that we do that sort of framework in collaboration with ADS. Kevin sits on our board at Farnborough International, because we can't do this ourselves. We have to do it with industry, and there isn't a better representation of industry in the UK than what ADS are. So.
It's an exciting week ahead of us, and very much looking forward to seeing what this year's edition brings to life. Thank you so much, Kevin and Gareth, for joining me today for this episode and for sharing your insights and telling us a bit more about the show, its history, its relevance, and also the future plans. And thank you for listening to the special episode of Defence Talks, Securing UK Advantage, brought to you by the Council on Geostrategy in partnership with ADS and sponsored by BAE Systems. You can find our upcoming podcast episodes on our website, and please visit www.geostrategy.org.uk/defence talks. Thank you, and until next time.